friends are having a great time. It's not face to face, it's all online. We're all in our homes, miles away. Love them like my family, what can I say? My crafting show is on, it's my time for me. Laughter, tips and tricks, this is what I need. We're here to have fun, we're all in the zone. When crafting with friends, you're never alone. Don't call or text me, it's about to begin. I've been patient, time for me to chime in. Comfy clothes on, feeling just fine. I'm busy right now, it's crafting show time. My crafting show is on, it's my time for me. Laughter, tips and tricks, this is what I need. We're here to have fun, we're all in the zone. When crafting with friends, you're never alone. The host came on, they are truly a gem. Here for the show and to chat with my friends. Chat with each other about this and that. We share ideas, wisdom and other fun facts. My crafting show is on, it's my time for me. Laughter, tips and tricks, this is what I need. We're here to have fun, we're all in the zone. When crafting with friends, you're never alone.
Live from the Sunshine State in Miami, Florida, here is the Gifted Crafters Morning Show with Nancy.
Let's have a good time. Ooh, time to get our craft on. Ooh, time to have fun. Ooh, time to feel good.
Good morning, Gifted Crafters, and welcome to the Gifted Crafters Morning Show. Good morning, everyone. I see people from all over the place. I've got Texas, Louisiana. Oh boy, it gets it's rainy over in Texas and thunderstorming. Oh gosh, and it's in San Antonio, Texas. Oh my goodness, and we've got hot North Texas. Oh boy. Well, it's pretty hot here in Florida. You know, yesterday they said it was going to be all stormy and everything, and we never got a lick of rain. So you can never tell. You can never tell what's going to happen here in Miami. So we know it's hot. I can tell you that. Not sure about the rain. That'll be on and off. I don't know. Alrighty, I see my friends from Canada. Oh, and Krissa is getting ready to attend the event. Awesome, Krissa. Hope you have a fantastic time. Please let us know all about it and take some pictures for us, will ya? Alrighty, Melissa says it's raining over in East Texas. Oh boy, Louisiana is beautiful and sunny and bright. No clouds in the sky. Oh boy. Awesome. Okay, I think we are settling in now. So if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Nancy with GiftsHQ, and these are the daily shows that we host to just kind of go through any type of craft. We range from crocheting, sewing, embroidery, and just so much more. And I want to thank you guys for those of you that filled out the survey form. If you haven't, please go ahead and do that. The links are below. It really helps us out. Let us know. This is your show. Let me know what you would like to see in the morning shows, whether it's more sewing or embroidery or whatever it is, because, you got to let us know so that we can tailor these shows and show you what you guys want to see. So let me know about that, because I will be more than happy to kind of accommodate all of those suggestions and then just kind of tailor the show towards that. So that's where we would like to know what we're doing pretty good at and you want to see more of, and maybe there's some things that you're not too crazy about and want to see less of. We want to know that too. It really helps us out. So thank you so much. If you haven't done it, please go ahead and fill out that form. Alrighty. Awesome. I see the chat is getting there. Hey, South Carolina. Hello. Good morning. Alrighty. Okay. I think we are ready to go. So if you haven't had a chance, grab your little cup of whatever it is you have in the morning and get yourself a sip, because I think the food truck is also coming along down the block. I think I can hear it. And guys, don't forget, you can get anything you want from that food truck. It's absolutely free. There are no calories, and you can have all the goodies that you like. So go ahead and grab your favorite whatever it is that you like in the morning, and don't forget, we've got healthy stuff there for you too. Okay, I'm going to grab a little sip here. Okay, I think we are ready to go. All right. Oh my, you overslept today. Oh boy. Well, thanks for joining 1 Minute Tips. Go ahead and grab yourself a cup of coffee. Okay, so let me see. I think I did all the announcements that I have. So today, we want to kind of continue, because we didn't have enough time yesterday. So I want to continue kind of showing you what you can do with these granny squares that you can embroider. Yes, these are embroidered. If you did not tune in, these are embroidered granny squares that you can do on your embroidery machine that mimics crochet. And there's tons of projects that you can make this time around. And, crochet is pretty hot right now. It's a really hot trend going on for the summer. So if you're not a crocheter, and we do know that crochet takes some time to kind of, get projects completed, because it does take time. It is a handmade item. And you do have to stitch it up. So if you are a little impatient and don't want to wait, or just, have no idea how to crochet and are not interested in learning how to crochet, this is something that you can do on your embroidery machine. And so we shared a link yesterday. It says, I got this off of an Etsy shop. It's from Lisa Kaplan, and she designed these crochet granny squares, or embroidered granny squares, that you can kind of pick up. So go ahead and get the files. She's got two different ones. One was in the shape of an octagon, and the other one was the granny square. And then you can kind of use that to kind of make your project. And I'm going to show you just a couple of things that you can make with that. So let's go over, before we get to that, I know you guys are just dying to know what's going on out there in the crafting world. So let me kind of give you a quick little summary of some of the things that we found that are going on. But first, we want to start off with a really sweet story that brought two hearts of friendship together. And I thought this was just so beautiful. So there's a lady by the name of Shirley Mento, who was known as a go-to seamstress, and she's at the Peabody Place, which is an assisted living home in Franklin, New Hampshire. And before she moved out last year, she left behind her sewing machine, some fabric, and some unfinished quilt blocks for other people to enjoy. Now, not long after that, they got a new resident, and her name was Roberta Burke, and she moved in and she found Shirley's leftover pieces. And that inspired her to finish the quilt. Not for herself, but she wanted to gift it back to Shirley. So in May, Shirley returned to the Peabody place because they had a little surprise tea party for her, and Roberta handed over to her the finished quilt. And when Shirley saw it, she saw a label that was stitched inside that read, "Blocks made by Shirley." And she was just overcome with emotion. The two women had never met before, but they instantly connected, and she shared her love of quilting. Roberta even said that she thought of Shirley every time she was stitching, and she was wondering the choices that she's made when she was selecting the fabric. So Shirley promised to use the quilt often, and the two bonded like lifelong friends. Shirley's been crafting for decades, but for her, it was always about more than just the quilt. It was always about making people happy, and she just thinks that this makes us like happier people. And I think, I agree with that. I think people who are crafting people are just happier people in general, right? Don't you agree? Now, I just think that, the two items together, the quilting, whether it's sewing, crocheting, any item, any craft really helps to bring emotion out. And it just really bonds us with like-minded people. And it's just amazing what we come up with. I mean, look at us here. We're virtual, right? Okay, so let's go over to Deep Creek, Maryland. This is a Deep Creek Lake in Maryland area. Now, this marks 100 years that the locals are celebrating in this little crafty way. So the Barn Quilt Association of Garrett County just launched a special contest inviting folks to design a brand new barn quilt square. Isn't that amazing? They're celebrating the beauty, the history, and the heart of Deep Creek Lake. And if you've never seen a barn quilt before, they're big, they're colorful, they've got quilt blocks painted on barns, and there are over 50 of them when you're going down the roads of Garnett County. So if you haven't looked that up, go ahead and just, you can Google it. Barn quilt, and you'll see they're so amazing how they really brighten up a barn, and that's just like a new trend that's going on there. It's absolutely amazing. And right now they're calling for all artists, quilters, and community members, and yes, even the kiddos, and they're allowing them to submit their own original design. Now the winner will get their square turned into a 4x4 foot painting, and that'll go on display at the Deep Creek Lake Discovery Center. Plus, they get a $150 prize. Second place wins $100, and there's a special $50 prize for the young artists who are under the age of 18. Isn't that fun? Now, the deadline for this is June 25th. So if you feel inspired and you want to get your creative juices flowing, go ahead and go to their website for more information. And that is garrettbarnquilts.org. Okay, that's where you can get more information. Alrighty, and that is the crafting news that I have for you today. Hope you guys enjoy that. So, what are we doing? Again, we're going to go back to our little granny square project, and we're going to continue to make more things with this. Now, where we left off yesterday, we kind of ran out of time. So what we did is we went ahead and we sewed the 3 granny squares together using a zigzag stitch. And then we went ahead and we just zigzagged using the zigzag stitch again. We went ahead and put the fabric behind it here. And so I just took a piece of a fat quarter that I had, and you can see that here. I've got a bunch of little scraps of fabric, so you really don't need too much. So I went ahead and used this fabric. I think it kind of complements it well. And you could use any fabric, like you can use a white fabric, and let's just, this is heat and bond, but you can see here, if you use the white fabric, what it would look like. Like, go ahead and take a piece of fabric and just bump it up behind the crochet, and you can see if you really want to use that or not. You know, you may like the way it brings out the color, or maybe you don't. Like, you can just use a yellow and see how the flower turns yellow there with the white thread. So it's just, you know, just play around with the colors and see which one you want to select, and see what kind of brings out and gives it that pop. Because you can change your colors on your embroidery, or you can change the fabric that's behind it, and that really, you want to use that contrasting fabric so that it really pops out the color. Okay. So we went ahead and we selected our fabric, and then we went ahead and did a zigzag stitch. Now, the zigzag stitch I'm using the Brother HC 1850, and I used the number 4 zigzag. Number 4 is a little bit wider open. I did change my stitch width to be a 4 millimeter, and then I used the stitch length. I have it at 1.6, which is pretty tight, only because we have all of the little holes that the crochet has, right? So when you go around, you want to make sure that you're reinforcing this. This is something that you're going to be used. So you want some type of a construction stitch. And this has a lot of little holes. So you want to make sure that you capture it. And so you're zigging and zagging, grabbing the fabric and then grabbing your embroidered crochet here. And then, you know, just kind of seaming the two together. So that's why I'm using a very tight stitch so that I can capture the two. Okay, you don't want it to be a zigzag stitch that's very loose, and loosey-goosey here is not going to keep the two together. And you think about what you're using the project for. If it's just kind of like a home decor that you're not really going to handle it much, then of course you can get a longer stitch length and it can be a lot looser. But if this is something that you're going to be using, like I'll be using this, it's going to get a lot of pulling and tugging on it. And so that construction stitch is really going to hold your stitches down and make this a little bit more durable. So you want to be able to make sure that that will stay in place. Okay, now I did this a little bit different than you would do normally, right? Normally we would stitch things together and then turn them inside out. You can do that. However, because this granny square is only a 4x4 inch, it's pretty small. So if I do that, I am going to take a little bit more space on the edges. And I kind of didn't want to do that, although you can if you want to. All right, you can flip this inside out and then you would have a nice clean seam on the end. But I wanted to have a little bit of that ragged look, so I wanted to kind of leave that a little bit. Now, all I did, once I did finish the zigzag stitch, and I did this a little bit off camera, is once I had that in place, I went around with a pair of scissors and I trimmed this up all the way around. Now, if you want to use pinking shears, you can do that as well and kind of leave that little zigzaggy design going all the right way around. It really depends how you want to display it, right? It's totally up to you. It doesn't impact the construction of it at all. This is just how you would like. That's purely aesthetic. It's just something that you would want to kind of figure out on what your look is. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut it all the way around. Now, the other thing that you can do, because you're still going to have to worry about a little bit of fraying that you may get, right? So if you're worried about the fraying, you can also get some fray check. I'm sure a lot of you guys have this in your craft room, but here is the bottle just in case you do not. It is called Fray Check. It is available in Amazon or any other local quilt shop, and it's relatively low cost. And I can tell you, I got this bottle and I've had it for years, and you know, it's still good. It doesn't go bad. It's liquid on here, and you will have this for a long time. Just remember where you put it, right? So then what you can do is just put a couple drops on here going all the way around, and that will just kind of help to seal the edges so you won't get that fraying. Another thing that people use is a little lighter. You can go around here and just light up the edges, and that kind of cinches it here. Just don't hold the lighter for very, very long because you don't want to burn your actual project, right? You just want to kind of burn the edges a little bit, and that'll stop the fraying from happening. So if you're a bag maker, you kind of know that technique as well. Okay, so we're at the point here, and I'm going to kind of just grab my little button jar, and this is where you're going to have to make some decisions, okay? So I'm going to go in here and grab a couple of things. Let me just grab this one here. And you got to kind of decide what you want to do with this and how you want to use it. So we know that we have our 3 squares. We know that we've already sewed our fabric to it. And we've kind of talked about yesterday what we'll be doing is folding this piece up here. And then all you have left to do is to go ahead and sew these sides, again, using that zigzag stitch, because you want to make sure you capture that. And then once you sew these sides up, you're basically going to have yourself a nice little coin purse, right? You have a nice deep little space in there. You can put, you know, I don't know, your lipstick, whatever it is that people carry around. And then you've got this little flap that will close that. Okay, so cute little coin purse that you can make here. Now, other things that you can decide on is, do you want to put a little button? I can just put a little button here if I wanted to, and just kind of reinforce that, change up the look. Maybe I want to add another splash of color. You know, you can definitely change this around as much as you want, and just kind of play around and see what you like. Or maybe you want to just keep it the same and you don't want the button and you just want to keep it the way it is. You can totally do that as well. But you have to kind of make those decisions before you start to sew up these edges, because one thing you want to think about, I can leave this completely open like this, but if I'm going to use this for coins, then I may not want to keep this flap open like this, right? Because my coins will just slide right out. So something else that you have to consider is, how are you going to make this a closure? Like, you definitely need to close it somehow so that it doesn't fall out. So now this is where you need to decide, okay, do I want to use a button? Maybe I want a little button to close it. Maybe I want a little snap to install here. Maybe just a little piece of Velcro here on the edge. And so you would install that so that this stays nice and closed. So that's something that you should do before you sew up these edges, because if you're doing a snap and you need to put something on the inside here, it makes it a lot easier for you to install that before you close up these sides here. So something to think about, you know, if that's what you're looking to do, then go ahead and do that before you sew up the sides, whether you're doing the snap or a button. Maybe you're going to put a little piece of elastic to kind of close it. You can do that as well. I would just kind of use a little piece of Velcro. That's probably like the easiest thing. And then you can just put that little piece of Velcro here, add a very small piece right here, just so that it would then open and close easily. Okay. All right, so I'm okay with just leaving it as a flap here, because I'm just going to use this. I can put some business cards or some other little paper items in here. So I'm going to keep this just like that. I'm going to keep the flap open. So all I'm going to do now is just go ahead and sew up the sides. So let's do that real quick. So let me grab my machine and drag this over here. And again, you want to make sure that your thread that you're using is the same thread you are using for your bobbin. So whatever the thread color is, you know, if you don't want it to show on your project, make sure that the bobbin thread is the same. I've already wound it up my bobbin, and I have this bluish thread that's going to kind of work for me down here. Okay, so let's see. I think I'm going to put these two together here. And so we've got our sew cam going on, and I'm going to just kind of go right on the edge here. And I'm going to kind of line this up a little bit here. And again, we're using the zigzag stitch, so it's going to zig and zag all the way across. So I got to give myself some leg room over here because as it zigs and zags, I want it to kind of stay and not go off of where my fabric is lined up. And then you just want to make sure that you are nice and lined up across here, because remember, it says a embroidered item, and so it may not be 100% perfectly straight like a piece of fabric would be when we cut it, right? So you got to kind of go with the edge. So just check on that. And so I'm just going to move it just a tad more. And let's try about there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle. Let me just find where my foot pedal is. There you are. And we're just going to go ahead and sew that. Now, can I backstitch here? Absolutely, but be very careful because as you backstitch, you don't want to, snag on one of these things right here. So let's see, hold on. Let me just check one thing. Yeah, I think I want to do it this way. Yeah, okay. Had to flip it over. Okay, let me get that thread out of the way. Sorry about that. Okay, so you gotta make sure that you get to that edge because you may want to backstitch, but because it's crocheted, you may get hung up on there. So be very careful with that. And I would do that very slowly. So again, I'm going to drop my needle. I'm going to take a couple stitches and then I'm going to hit my back and I'm just going to kind of go back there and reinforce that. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side, especially on the other side, because that's where it's going to get the most tugging. So you want to make sure that that is nice and reinforced. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is where it's going to get the most pull. So very nice and slowly here, I'm going to back stitch and stitch again. And that's all you need to do for that side. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Let's see, I have my snips with me. There we go. Okay. Let me just go ahead and cut my threads. Where'd the other one go? Here we are. Okay. So now let's do the other side. I'm going to actually do it this way. I'm going to start on this side. Most used here. And you can see here, this just has the one thread right here that's going around. Get my pointer so I can show you. So in this case, we only have the one piece and you've got this big hole here. This is why we're using the zigzag stitch, because we want to reinforce that. And these little holes, are going to be difficult to reinforce because you're not going to grab the embroidered item. So we're going to go ahead and zigzag that all together here, reinforcing this area because this is going to get the most pull and tugging, right? So make sure that this is nice and solid and then just take it all the way down. So let's do that. Once again, top, drop my needle, and here we go. Couple stitches, and we're going to reverse and bring that down. And I'll do the same here on the end where I backstitched a little there. Alrighty, now go ahead and lift up my presser foot, raise my needle, and we're going to cut those threads. So, guys, we just made our first little project here. Again, if you wanted to add a button or something to kind of decorate the front, you can absolutely do that. Just remember, if you still wanted to do a little piece of Velcro, you still have the option to do that here. You've got enough leeway to do that. But if you wanted to add, let's say, a snap, you'll see how now it's going to be really difficult for you to install it because we've already sewed up the sides. So you can see here, we've got our nice little pocket here. I can fit all kinds of little things in here, and I have a nice large flap that kind of comes over. So really cute, really easy, really compact, and something that you can use for your everyday stuff, right? So we've got a couple others that we can make. And remember, guys, we did a couple of these, and you can embroider 2 granny squares together. We talked about how you can overlap this here. You can even do more of them, right? If you wanted to, if you had a large enough hoop, you'd be able to do the 3 granny squares together in the hoop, and you wouldn't have to do any sewing on the actual embroidery. And then all you would have to do is attach the fabric. So I'm going to go through the fabric one more time because we kind of sped through this yesterday. Again, I am just sewing it this way because I think this is just easier for me. I'm putting the granny square right on top of the fabric. Okay, this is how I want it to look. So I'm not going to be doing right sides together and sewing. I'm just going to be sewing it right on top. And I'm going to bring that zigzag stitch all the way around. So again, I'm going to kind of just line this up here, and I'm not going to start on the corner. I'm going to start kind of in the middle. Makes it a little bit easier, and I'll finish this off somewhere in the middle here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drop my needle here. Again, my little foot, I think I kicked it over to the side. There we go. And just follow this all the way down around where you're zigging and zagging, where you're grabbing your fabric and you're grabbing your embroidered area. So zig and zag all the way across. Just make sure that you are capturing both pieces because you don't want to have a little hole here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Now when you get towards these little curves here, so crocheted is not like fabric where it's just like flat and squared. We have the little curves, so you want to kind of move with that curve, just moving your fabric in and out to be able to capture the curve as you go. So just kind of do that a little bit slowly. We'll slow this down, and you'll see how I'm kind of turning my fabric, and then I'm going to kind of turn it the other way. So before I kind of yank it towards the other way, what I'm going to do, while my needle is down, I'm going to raise my presser foot, and I'm just going to rotate it, and then bring my presser foot right back down. That's going to line me right back up to be able to go back up the curve, and then realign myself when I get to my edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a couple stitches on that. And you notice here, this is that area where we have just that single line of stitching going on. The embroidered area doesn't really have much reinforcement there. So you really want to capture that one little piece of thread that it has there. And so I'm here at my edge. I'm going to raise again my presser foot, realign myself, and kind of put myself back down. If you want it to be a little bit more to the edge, you can take a couple more stitches. You can do that if you want. And then I would pivot back again so that now I can follow this straight line just going all the way down. So let's go ahead and follow that. And I'm zigging and zagging all the way across. We're approaching that corner, so I'm going to rotate. And then I'm going to go ahead and straighten myself out. Another corner, so we're going to rotate again. And straighten myself out again. Okay. And you just continue this all the way around, and we are doing the entire area. And because we are sewing it this way, we don't have to worry about flipping it inside out. So because this granny square is a little bit tight, you know, I want to make sure that I have enough spacing to do that, because if I had to flip this inside out, it'd be super tight. Yes, you probably could do it because I've done it even tighter than this. But if it really bothers you to have the raw edges showing, then go ahead and do that. And we're coming around again. Last curve. And this is the finish here. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and take that off. Here we are. We've got our nice zig and zag going on here. Okay. And you've got your curved edges. Here's where we were taking it around the curve and then coming back over. So remember, these granny squares are not lined up 100%. So it's not going to be a straight line all the way. These are embroiders, so, you know, they're not perfectly straight. They kind of go around a little bit. So it's got that little homemade appeal, right? So it's not a straight line. You can see here how it kind of pivots a little bit, but it is a 4x4 inch square. It's just some areas is not as straight as we'd like them to be, right? Okay, so now I'm going to kind of set this over to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors, and I'm just going to cut all around the edges. Now you have to be careful with this. You don't want to cut your stitches, right? So you're just going to kind of bump it up against the granny square, and then just go ahead and cut it going across. And when you get to the little corners where the curves are, just, you know, take your time and going into the curve a little bit and then come right back out. Now, if you want to use your pinking shears, you can do that as well. That'll give you a nice little design instead of bumping it up and cutting up through the corners here. You can definitely do that, and that'll give you a nice little design on the edge. What stitch width and length is your zigzag? I am using, my width is a 4.0 and my length is a 1.6. We kind of talked about the construction of that, right? Because this is something that I'm going to be using. My stitch length is a 1.6, which makes it kind of like a construction stitch, because we have a lot of pulling and tugging that we're going to be doing on this. So I want to make sure that it is nice and secure. And I do not want those to be loose, because we want this to be nice and tight so it reinforces and can be used for a long time. I like my things to kind of last a long time, right? So I want to make sure that the reinforcement is very tight on here. Now, can you get away with a 2 or a 2.5? Absolutely, you can. But I just like to make mine really tight. Since I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to use this for, I can use it for some business cards and things like that that I can put in. But if you want to use it for like things like coins or something like that, then you really want to make sure it's reinforced. Mariana's asking, you could stitch it to felt or faux leather. Absolutely. That way you don't have to worry about the raw edge. Yes, absolutely. Very good point. Definitely, if you are not a fan of the raw edge look, you know, go ahead and get faux leather, felt, things like that. You know, it would definitely work for this project. You would just have to make sure, you know, since you are kind of stitching on a thicker item, that you're using the correct needle for that, because you don't want to break your needle, since those are thicker items that you're going to be putting through your machine. Okay, and so you see I didn't have too much waste, which is not too bad. So I did take off the edges here. And so now what I can do is just kind of put some fray check here on the edges. And I can do some fray check going all the way around. That'll help to avoid the fraying here. The other thing that you can do, and I just kind of put it around with my finger here. And so some of this is a little, let me widen up the hole just a little bit, since it's probably been a while since I've used this. It's having a hard time coming out. So pop a little pin in there, and then just that kind of reopens it up. There we go. It's a little better. And so I just kind of very lightly. Let's see if you guys could see it on. Can we put the sew cam? Maybe they can see a little better here. And so I just kind of go around the edges here. And with that little drop, you know, just drop it here on the side and just go around the edges here. Okay. And again, this kind of eliminates that fray. And I just kind of go all the way around on here. Now, if that's a little tedious and you don't really want to go through all of that, your second option is to just kind of take a little lighter and just light up the edges here. So just, there we go. Just a little bit, just kind of very gently go around and just fray those and just burn the edges. And then that will eliminate some fray as well. So you can do that here. Yes, we're lighting it up, guys. We're lighting up the fabric. Just don't light up your craft room, please. Okay. Just a little bit of light on here. That'll seal up your edges as well. And so it will eliminate that from fraying some more. And so now all you would need to do here is just to continue to do that all the way around. And then you would have your first panel ready to go. Now you'll continue that and you'll do that for your second panel as well as your third panel. You could use cork fabrics. Yes, you can definitely use cork fabrics. We can use vinyl as well. Let's see, other materials that I can think of. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you guys like the content, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. That helps to support the channel here. And so now we've got our first little panel here ready to go. And so now we're going to do the same thing with the other two here that we have. And all we're going to do is follow the same exact process. Now, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I want to attach this, but I also want to attach these two together. Let me move this over to the side. So for this particular one, we are going to have the two items together. Once we have them all sewed up and with our fabrics put together, we are going to put them together here and sew up the sides, very similar to how we did the little coin purse here. We're just going to go ahead and stitch all the way around here, leaving this top portion open, okay, because this is going to be the inside, right? So we're going to have this here open. Of course, you'll have your fabric attached and you'll have a nice opening right here. So this is just kind of like a coin purse, but a little bit bigger, right? And so you'll have this, and let me kind of adjust this so you can see what it would look like. So it would be like this. Of course, the bottom piece would be sewed, right? And then you still need to figure out how you want to do the flap. And so this piece here needs to be attached to one of the pieces of granny squares. So let me separate these two fabrics. They don't want to separate. There we go. Okay, so we've got the three little panels, right? Embroidery on the bottom. We've got our embroidery faced down, fabric on top, stitch that all the way around on all three sides only, okay? We've got the three sides. Now, this fabric is already on the granny square, so all the fabric is all the way around on all four sides, but then when you're doing the assembly, you're only going to do the three sides, okay? Then you're going to want to attach this panel with this, okay? So you're going to have this all the way across, one seam going all the way across to connect these two together. And then you're going to assemble it, putting this on top and sewing this all the way. You know, you want to keep that, this way. You want to keep this opening, right? You just want to keep one opening here, and one side will be open, the other side will have your little panel on top. And then once this is all sewed together and this is sewed on, this will be the flap. to open. So you'll have a really cute little larger coin purse. I don't know if you want to call it a coin purse, or, you have your little area, and you'll have a larger area to be able to put things in. Now, if you wanted to add some pockets to this, you can do that as well. So before you construct this together, think about that. If you're going to be putting cards in here, you may want to grab, let me just grab a piece of fabric here. Of course, it would have to be a little bit longer than this. I would fold this here, and then you would go ahead and place that fabric. It'd be long enough to go all the way around. And you would have the raw edges here on the edge and the folds up here. When you start to construct this and you start to go ahead and stitch this all the way around together, you would have that fabric on the inside. And then when you're all done, you'll have this nice little pocket here. It's like a little sleeve where you can kind of put little, I don't know, little business cards or whatever it is you want to slide into place. Maybe some dollar bills you want to keep on the side here. You can do that too. So that would kind of keep all of that together, and then you would just kind of place it on top. Make sure that that raw edge, maybe even sticking out just a bit, because you can always cut that piece off, but you want to make sure that you capture this bottom piece. The landscape mode can come in handy with coupons. Yes, this can definitely be your little coupon book. Sunglass case, maybe. Absolutely. Yeah, these are great ideas, and you can make these so easy and so simple. And for those of you who have little shops, maybe you're doing that little craft fair, these are great little sellers because they're things that people can really use, and people just love handmade things. So definitely something you can do. So make sure this raw edge is kind of sticking out a little bit or all the way on the edge, because you want to make sure that you capture that, right? And then when you assemble it together, right, say this is going to be your opening here, you want to stitch this all the way across. But you want to have this already attached to just this panel here, okay? So again, the two panels together, stitched only here to assemble this together, so you'll have the two panels. Or if you know that this is what you're going to make in your embroidery hoop, you can always just embroider the 4 granny squares together. That way you don't even have to sew this piece, right? So if you've got a large enough hoop, you can definitely do that. Have this come out as 4, and then you can do just 2. And then go ahead, if you're going to make the pocket, you can put the pocket in if you'd like. Just get a larger piece of fabric that goes all the way across. And then go ahead and sew this panel in with the fabric, flip that over. And then now all you have left to do is to stitch on all 3 sides. And then that will create yourself your little pocket, your little sleeve here on the inside as well. And you can give it a little bit of pop of color like I just did here with the yellow. So kind of makes it look a little bit unique and pretty. So then you can do that. And then once you have that, you would just be able to fold this down, and you'd again have to decide the same type of thing. Do you want a little piece of Velcro? Maybe you want a button. Maybe you want to add a little something here on the sides as well. You can do that too. And put little buttons here on the ends. I had a couple little things that you can add, if you want to change up the color a little bit, if you want to add a different little design. I mean, you can pick so many different things to change up the look. But I think that's what makes things really unique, and has the ability for you to really sell it as well. Okay. Or maybe not use the other flap and make it a zipper pouch. Yes, you can do that as well. You can just add a little zipper here. I would do, if you're thinking about zippers, it'll be a little difficult to add because of the crochet. So I would recommend to add, if you were to take this, kind of add, when you're adding your fabric to do your background for the granny square, I would have the fabric come out just a bit here like this. and then I would put the zipper and attach the zipper to the actual fabric, not so much to the square. And other thing that I would do, because it's just fabric, it's going to get a lot of pulling on that zipper. So you want to grab a little bit of interfacing on here because you want to reinforce this fabric as well. So I would maybe grab some SF101 would probably work. If you're looking at just a light fusible interface to reinforce this, so that then when you're using the zipper, as you pulling with the zipper, it's pulling on the fabric. So you want to make sure that that has some reinforcement on there and is a little bit sturdy. You don't want your fabric to kind of tear after you're pulling on that zipper so many times. Okay, so I think that is a couple of ideas that you guys can do with this. I hope you guys really like that. And there's just so many other, I mean, I can go on and on and on about 1,001 things that you can do with these granny squares. So these are just a couple of my ideas right off the top. And I just wanted you to kind of bring you on the journey with me on how my mind kind of works when I'm kind of figuring out these projects. So of course, these are prototypes, right? This is what I kind of go through as I'm thinking through things, you know. I think of the fabrics, I think of the interfacing, I think of the usage of what your project is going to be used for. And does it need extra reinforcement? Is it going to get a lot of pulling and tugging? Like as I continue to pull and tug on this, I don't want it to seems to pop right open, right? You want it to be nice and secure. So think about the thread, think about the interface, think about what fabrics you're going to be using, what you're going to be using the project for. All of these things are things that you need to be thinking about when you're trying to design something. We all want something to look nice and pretty, yes, and that always works, but you also want your project not to fall apart, right, when they're trying to use it. So you want to be able to think about how you're constructing it, and then when you think about your steps on when you're doing certain things, when is the perfect time for you to be able to do certain things? For example, adding a snap, adding a button, things like that. It would be very difficult for me to do that because I have already closed up my sides. So do I need to do that ahead of time before I finish this off? You know, those are things you got to think about as you're constructing things together. Now, unless you're just following instructions and you're following what the pattern says to do, then you would certainly just do that. But if you're wanting to kind of create on your own, these are kind of the things you got to kind of think about and put your mindset on, you know, just not think about just that finished project, but you're also thinking about the steps on how you're constructing it and how it's going to be used. So that is kind of my little take on my journey of how I kind of put things together. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's just, you know, how my mind works. Everyone works a little bit differently, but, you know, that's how I pull things together. Let's see, 1 minute tips. I'm going to show one of my daughters this video. She was thinking of starting an Etsy shop. Awesome. And she just got an embroidery machine. Well, definitely these are some tips for you to share. I know a lot of people talk about, you know, starting a business, opening up a business, and they give some great information on things you can do for pricing and business plans. That's a huge one. But you also have to think on the creative side. It's not just about creating a product and selling the product. It is the journey of how that product is made. And I think that's what some people really appreciate as well. It has an artisan handmade look, which you don't find so much today. Yeah, and there's some people that really look for just that, right? They're looking for that handmade item, but you want the handmade item to also be something that can be used, right? You don't want to have something that is not used at all or falls apart when you kind of sell it, because you're putting your name to that. And if you're putting a little tag as well, a little label, you know, don't forget to do that as well. You know, just advertise what you are doing here. So, you know, this is something as you start to create things that you have to think about. And if it's something that you're going to be teaching people to do, these are the steps that you want to kind of write down and put together so that when you go out and you teach these things, that you have everything in place. Okay, so that was our little lesson of the day. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. We've got a segment coming up, and I wanted to leave you guys with the inspirational quote of the day. So let's go over to that. Alrighty, so today's inspirational quote of the day is, "Some things aren't finished in a day, but they're still worth finishing." And that's absolutely our little journey today. So I've took you through purchasing the little design, and we've taken a couple of days to kind of finish this so I can show you all kinds of different things that you can do. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and I hope I have kind of inspired you and gave you some little tips that you could use going forward. So please join us again tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow morning for another fun project and things that we can talk about. And I hope you guys really tune in for that as well. Let me just scan the chat here, see if I have any other questions on here really quickly here. Okay, yep. Awesome. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I think I have answered what I saw, but if I did miss it, go ahead and send me an email and I will help you out, or you can leave a comment on there. So don't forget, guys, go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's content. We will be back again tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And don't forget, guys, be creative out there. There's tons of things that you can do. So go ahead and spend some time in that craft room today, wherever you are. Thank you once again. Oh, one more thing here. Let me see. Okay, so did I miss? There was one more item. One second here. Oh, yes, one more thing. So sorry. That's one thing I forgot to mention. We are very close to getting to our 10,000 subscribers, guys. Oh my gosh. We are so close, and I want to do a little giveaway when that happens. So stay tuned for that. And if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and consider subscribing, because we are so close to hitting 10,000 subscribers, and we want to celebrate that with you. So I did forget to mention that earlier, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this and subscribe to our channel so we can continue to provide the content for you. Awesome. Okay, I think that is it. That was all the announcements that I had, and I did think I just left that one piece out. Well, thank you, Faker McFake. I can't wait to get to those 10,000, and we'll be celebrating with you guys. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful day. We will see you again tomorrow, and I hope to be crafting with you soon. Bye, everyone.
So long for now, so long. Glad you stayed a while. Hope you liked my crafting style. Hope I left you with a smile. By now, keep your mind and space clutter-free. Hope your day is bright as can be. So long, my friends, till we craft once again. Bye now, stay crafting. See you tomorrow. So long, my friends, till we craft once again.